All right. Hey, everyone. We are live. Tom Hazzard here with Tracy Hazzard, and it is our weekly client coaching call. We have a fantastic topic today, and I'm super excited for this episode. This is not your average coaching call.
No, this isn't really about coaching. It's kind of like pick Tom's and Tracy's brain and hear what we think about stuff. So this is a common topic that I get asked about all the time because I wrote for Inc. magazine for 4 years. So innovation. So people would ask me, and they've been asking me for years what I think of AI. And that's what we're going to talk about today.
Well, and you've been really studying AI.
Yeah, I've been studying it over a decade now.
You've also been testing it.
Yeah, I absolutely have. So we're going to talk about that.
This isn't just in the abstract, right?
But I do want to quickly start our episode because it's our 200th episode today we're recording. And we're recording this live with all of you, so you kind of get to hear that. So let's just jump right in, Tom, because this is going to be a longer episode. I think we got a lot to cover. So let's jump right in.
All right. And do I have the title? Do we have the title?
Yes, you do, because it's dropped in the chat. Thanks to Cody.
Oh, good.
Because our team is so organized over here.
Why is your own voice is more powerful than AI generated content? Okay, cool. I just wanted to know that because I'll set that up and then sounds really good. Throw to you. Okay.
He also has the whole description if you want.
No, I saw the description. What I didn't see was the title, and I guess it was just up too high in the chat. I got it. Okay, cool. Welcome back to Feed Your Brand. I'm Tom Hazzard, along with my co-host Tracy Hazzard and better half. And boy, are you going to realize why she's my better half today in this episode. And before I talk about today's topic, I think we need a celebration moment, Tracy, because this is our 200th episode of Feed Your Brand.
Woo!
I didn't even know that until
I know. I got the message
today.
from the team because we have a team who submits our episodes for us. I don't see the numbers until they publish, right? So it would have been, we wouldn't have recorded knowing that in mind. It just would have published and it would have randomly been this one would randomly be episode 200. But I got the message this morning before we recorded here. And I told our youngest daughter, that it was our 200th episode. And I said, we recommend that podcasters celebrate. What would you do to celebrate recording 200 episodes? And she says, have a party with cake. Because that's like what 8-year-olds think about, right? Cake. And I was like, and then she started going off and have confetti. And let's have a funfetti cake. And then so she was just going wild with it. And I was like, this is what we all need, though. That little bit of mindset shift to remembering that celebration is more than just acknowledgement of it. We also need to have a little celebration, maybe a little margarita later, or maybe, we need to celebrate more. All of us do.
Yeah. 200 episode margaritas. You're on later. Let's do it.
What the calculation though, is that I personally now have tipped over recording 1,000 episodes.
Of
personally.
What? No. You've done much more than that.
No, I've recorded lots of interviews and all of those things, but I personally recorded and published over 1,000 episodes myself.
I'm surprised it's that little, honestly, because we did 650 with WTFFF, and you've had the binge factor. How many?
150. We're about 150.
And 200 here. I mean, I thought it was well over 1,000, but anyway, it's a lot. So that's great. All right. Well, but aside from the celebration moment, and thank you listeners for indulging us to do that. And I think all of you that achieve a milestone like that should celebrate and acknowledge it because it's a significant achievement. I mean, not your average podcaster doesn't get past 20, right?
Absolutely. It's an accomplishment.
But we have a really fantastic topic today and message we want to share with you, all of our listeners. And this is meaningful, pretty powerful stuff. Did you want to say something, Tracy, before I reveal the topic for today?
I did.
Oh, well.
I wanted to say thank you to you for being my co-host for 31 years. Because as we're recording this, it's not only our 200th episode, but it is our 31st wedding anniversary. And so I wanted to thank you for being my co-host all along the way.
Oh, well.
And the fact that you indulge my interest in some of these unusual things, like what we're going to talk about in our topic today, is one of the reasons I married you, because we love to have conversations. We love to have mind share and thinking about these innovative topics. And so that's one of my favorite things about being married to you.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. The feeling is completely mutual. I have to tell you, I could never have recorded 650 episodes of a podcast about 3D printing without you and honestly, for me, co-hosting a podcast is a lot more fun. Not that I don't get a lot out of podcasts that I record that are just me. I certainly do, and I enjoyed providing that value to others. But no, doing this with you is the great pleasure of my life, and being married to you for 31 years. Honestly, I still feel like a teenager. I can't believe it's been 31 years.
Oh, well, thank you.
And we actually met when we were teenagers, just in case you
I was 17 when I met you.
You were 17, I was 18. Yeah. All right. Well, let's get on to providing some value to our listeners today. We'll celebrate more later. But this topic is really exciting. I've been looking forward to recording this episode. Today, we want to talk about why using your own voice is more powerful than AI-generated content. And why are we talking about this today and AI-generated content in general? Well, because it's really happening all around us. A lot of you may not realize it, but Tracy's been studying and researching AI for a number of years and testing it. And then we've been doing some more testing recently with the emergence of ChatGPT, but I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Tracy, I want to throw it to you to lead us in this discussion, because you truly are our resident expert in it.
Well, and I wouldn't consider myself, this is new territory. And so one of my favorite things to do, and this is something that Tom and I, and the reason why we brought up our anniversary and our milestones, is whenever we hit an anniversary or milestone, we really start looking at what's next. This is our opportunity to talk about the future. And so I've been considering for some while, what is the future of podcasting? And there are lots of people who say the future of everything is AI, artificial intelligence. And I've been looking at that saying, I'm not so sure. And I like to look at everything with this sort of slightly skeptical view. I think it helps me be a little bit more objective about figuring out the best way to use something when I approach it from this skepticism standpoint, without sticking my head in the sand and saying, oh, AI is never going to happen. Like, oh, this is never, like, those people I don't believe in at all either. So like, we look at innovation from the standpoint of it's highly unlikely for it to like take over the world like people believe, because that just doesn't happen very often in innovation in general. And it's a whole lot slower usually than everybody imagines it will be. And, look at it today with what we were just talking about, our 3D print podcast, which kicked off everything that we do here. That 3D print podcast, they predicted that everyone would have a 3D printer in their kitchen, in their house, in there somewhere. How many of you have one?
But they predicted it would be like by now. Yeah.
Right.
Like
by now, everybody would have
houses, which it's not.
Right. It's not. It's not the way it goes. And so we know that because we've worked on so much of this disruptive technology over time. So having this skeptical view of things helps us understand of where the roadblocks are. When we get to like big proponent of something, and we just jump on the bandwagon and we just go on it, we have a harder time understanding how we're going to bring everybody along with us.
Well, and I think that skepticism can be healthy, but at the same time, I want our listeners to understand we have really dived into this technology, and we're not just talking about it and being, armchair quarterbacks here. We've been testing. You in particular have been testing AI with your podcast for a couple of years, because others have come out with AI that was supposed to help with generating, highlight clips automatically and things like that. Right, Tracy? You've been testing stuff for a couple of years and really found unimpressive results in the past, right?
Right. And I'm going to just gloss over that a little bit. And we're going to do a future episode, not probably until, a couple months from now, but we're going to do a future episode because I want more time testing out ChatGPT specifically, because I've only been testing it. It's only been available really to most people for about a month, and it's had like hit and miss access. For some of you, you may log in and it's like, it's too busy, you can't access now. So it's been like that for me as well. So I haven't gotten as much time on it as I would like, but I have spent a lot of time on other AIs and testing them out. And I'm going to provide some future guidelines as well as discussions of some of those different types of AIs in a future episode. But for right now, we're really going to be focused on why ChatGPT is changing the game a little bit. And that requires a slight history lesson. So if everybody will indulge me for a moment, and hopefully it's going to be really understandable. So the next time someone asks you, like, what about this AI stuff and podcasting? You have this like, oh, I know all about this. And you can, recite what I'm saying here, or summarize it, right? But most of the other AIs have been based on a couple of different technologies. One of them is DeepMind, which is Google's version of things, that you maybe have heard about, you may have seen tests about. ChatGPT is the third version of something that's come out from this whole group called OpenAI that I'm going to talk about and give you a little historical context. So we've been seeing some things that are building off it, and there's a bunch of other smaller AIs and other AIs that have been created in time. And so they are, to truly be the artificial intelligence that ChatGPT is, it needs to learn. So it doesn't just need to automate something. Let's be really clear on here. There are artificial intelligences, I don't know. I don't think that's
how about,
plural.
I would
it's
say
already.
there is artificial intelligence that does this, right? Okay. So maybe that's the way.
It's plural as is. I don't know. Anyway, there is artificial intelligence that automates things, right? We consider every time we see a chat bot, we think it's artificial intelligence. But the reality is it's all programming, pre-programmed to follow a path. So that's really automation. I want you to understand the difference here. That's automation. And not that it's not smart and it's fantastic and it saves us all time and energy. And like, that's great, but it is not learning. So true artificial intelligence in this model learns in some way, shape, or form.
And this is the big distinction, right, Tracy, that you definitely need to share with our listeners the way you did with me as we were talking about it, I think yesterday in preparation here, about what that difference is, because it really, you can understand what the leap is.
Right. And so I'm going to touch back on this in a minute, but ChatGPT and GPT, I just wanted, so all of you know, the GPT stands for something: generative pre-trained transformer. Generative, meaning it's going generations, it's learning, it's moving to the next generation, it's growing older, it's growing smarter, right? Pre-trained, so it has training wheels, guardrails, like some of those things on it, and they pre-program some of this into it. Pre-program where it gets its information from. It's pre-programmed to do some of these things. It's pre-trained, and it's transformer, meaning it should take what it learns and where it is and transform that into something else for you. It should generate a result for you, right? That's the idea of what it means, okay? And it is what they call a reinforcement learning platform, meaning that it learns, but it requires someone to reinforce its learning, to give it feedback. And there are lots of AI out there that don't have reinforcement learning. They don't have a feedback loop. We call them AI, but there's no feedback loop in it. The transcription systems, famous, no feedback loop.
That's right. Like, in fact, there are many different transcription systems out there that people use to transcribe their podcast audio for one reason or another. And they're often called AI. Rev.com has one called Rev.ai, and there are others also that do. And it's a one-way flow of information, right? From the audio to the transcript, and there is not a feedback loop, which inherently limits its ability to learn.
Right. So just want to keep that in mind, that this type, the Chat GPT, what makes it so interesting is how it's learning. It's reinforcement learning. And that's a real significant part of it. Now, there are many other, I mentioned before that that DeepMind, the Google version, right? It's out there, and it is, it is a reinforcement learning process as well, but it has much tighter guardrails because Google owns it, right? So it's privately owned. OpenAI, the company and the nonprofit. So it's a really weird structure. OpenAI is technically a nonprofit, and the revenue generating platform that they're building is the for-profit side, but it has one shareholder, the nonprofit. So it's kind of an interesting structure. Now, that the criticism that has come from who's invested in the nonprofit, or and they don't call it invested, they call it pledged, because they've pledged the funds into the nonprofit. So as the nonprofit needs it, they use it, right? The money goes in. It doesn't flow and sit in that like an investment does, okay? Elon Musk, Reid Hoffman, Jessica Livingston, Peter Thiel, AWS, Infosystem, Y Research, and Microsoft. And then you have Sam Altman, who's the CEO and kind of I'm going to say the kickoff founder of it. I mean, it happened with a group of people, but he's the kickoff founder, and he's from Y Combinator fame as well. And so Microsoft, and so all of those individuals, not Microsoft, but all those individuals, including AWS, Infosystem, and Y Combinator Research, they came in with $1 billion pledge. So they all pledged $1 billion at the beginning of this, and that, and then Microsoft came in and matched the $1 billion, which is an interesting change, and that happened. And OpenAI is built on the Azure platform, which is Microsoft's cloud computing. It's kind of like AWS or their version of it, but Azure platform, their cloud computing platform. And so it's really critically important that it's built on this hefty, I mean, right now, like they're gating the amount of people on it for a reason, because they don't want it to overwhelm the servers. They don't want it to overwhelm the space, right? They want it to run, and it requires a lot of computing power and heavy lifting to run AI. So that's part of why, this is a real good test for Microsoft in the future. And so it's a good investment. And I think I personally, in my view of it, is this was one of the smartest investments they could make in the last decade. So $1 billion seems like a lot of money. I think it's a drop in the bucket, and I think they're going to need 10 times that in the near future in order to get where they're going. Their plan is to create, they call it the API, not a API or an API or multiple APIs. They call it the, and I'm putting air quotes here for those of you who are just listening, the API for all to use. And that is OpenAI's mission. That the idea that this is open for all is what is going to keep AI from going terribly wrong. Like, this is their idea to prevent the Terminator,
Cyberdyne systems,
Cyberdyne system future. Yeah, exactly. Right. Like, their idea is that OpenAI is based on the premise that in order to reduce the risk of a Terminator future, everyone should have access to the AI, and it shouldn't be in the hands of corporations like Google. Like, that's how they're going up against Google on this. And but other criticizes, that it's going to really go wrong anyway. And I mean, look at the internet still has the deep web. Like, there's still
there's a dark side.
There's a dark side, cryptocurrency, right? Like crime, like there's a dark side to all of these things. There's always going to be. But if the majority of what it's being used at for good, maybe they're right? Like, this is, my view on this, I'm going to share with you in a minute, but I just want to finish giving you sort of the like broad brush history lesson on how this works. So DeepMind is their direct competitor. DeepMind is a London-based company that Google bought in 2014. And DeepMind's actually a lot more mature than people think it is, because it was already pretty mature in 2014 when they bought into. I mean, there's a lot of applications that they've already been testing using it, but there's been a lot of reports that Google actually scaled back because they felt it was too good. And so I can't confirm that this came straight from Google or not. But I'd be happy to link you to the article for what I read on this one that I think is probably a good indicator of what seems likely for them to find, whether or not this is true. And that is that, imagine if your search on Google was so efficient and so quickly and got you to the perfect answer for you, not just the perfect answer, not just a listing of answers. Are you going to spend as much time on Google as you do now? Are you going to get served up enough ads? So
Nope.
if the AI works, right, then they lose money because the majority of Google's money comes from advertisement.
And, this reminds me, Tracy, or you and I both did actually spend about 2 hours a couple days ago on the phone with someone who we regard as an expert in so many things, tech. He's sort of an ethical hacker, I think is a good way to talk about him or describe him. And he thinks that within a couple years, this AI, whatever ChatGPT becomes, will fundamentally change Google, if not kill Google, at least the way they're doing business today.
Yeah, it's going to harm their business model. So rumor is that they already have it. They already know how theirs works. It's so good that it would harm their business. And so they're trying to figure out what to do with it. So bringing out ChatGPT is really smart because it pushes them to have to figure this out faster. So I don't think you should count out Google. Like, that's just my view of the world. Like, I don't think you should count a company out like that has that much to lose, who already knows what this can do. It's not like they're seeing someone else do this for the first time and they're like, oh my goodness. Now, there's a lot of benefits that ChatGPT is amazing, but we don't actually know how DeepMind works because it's not actively in use. So you can't play with it to know.
Or it's not publicly available, right?
Not publicly available. So like, it could be great. It could be just as good. Like, we don't know, right? But rumor has it that Microsoft is prepared to put this into Bing as soon as March of 2023. So depending on when you're listening to this, it could be after, and you could already be seeing its effect on Bing. And I think it's really smart, Tom. And this is what I want to really say is like, Microsoft's business model is extremely different from Google's. They don't need advertising dollars. They have arrangements with Apple. That's the Bing is the search that Apple is based on. For some of the searches that they do.
Really?
Alexa uses Bing.
Whoa. What do you mean Bing is
so
Apple
some of their
search is based on Bing?
Some of the searches that they use underneath things to give you answers like weather and like
in Safari stuff, because I knew that was true of Bing is the search engine underneath Alexa,
right.
AWS, Amazon's,
right. So some of the
systems.
Searches are what I'm going to call more enterprise level searches, right? So like, in order to get you an answer on this, your phone is actually tapping into a Bing search to get the current results. So like, it's more at this API enterprise level. It's not on I'm getting served up an ad because I'm using the Bing search engine like Safari or like Chrome or like something like that, right? Different. So Bing's model of business is a little bit more enterprise focused. Otherwise, they would have killed it a long time ago. Like, why would you keep using it?
Yeah, because Bing is like I think 1% of internet searches, if that, right?
But that's using Bing as your search engine,
right?
Solely, not running underneath it, the searches. So now if you speed that up, you improve it, you're efficient with it. Can you imagine how much more money you'll make in enterprise solutions?
Because you already have your hooks into all these other devices and systems that use it. Pretty smart.
It's pretty smart. Second thing is that it's also a lot more, it's very efficient and has a lot more mobile basis, right? So when I search on my phone, I am less likely to spend more time going down a rabbit hole than I do on my computer. I'm not going to go through everything on the first page of Chrome, which is Google-based product for those of you who don't remember, but I'm not going to go Google something and then spend hours going through the first couple of pages of it. I'm going to like click on the first thing that's there. I need an answer quickly if I'm on my mobile device. And when you're wrong, I'm annoyed. So Google gets the brunt of me being kind of pissed off that they gave me a bad answer. So I want a more accurate answer. And this is where AI can be much more useful in the search process. And if Bing is delivering those on a mobile device, then now we have a much better shot of being a better answer. And if I ask my Alexa device for an answer and she gives me the best answer for me because she's learning me, she knows me, our whole household will trust that faster and will continue to reinforce and use that in a better way than we would any other device to get an answer.
Okay.
Right? I just did it today. I was checking Greenwich Mean Time against our local time and I asked her, but what she didn't do was give me the time zone in Pacific time. She gave me it. I mean, she didn't give me the specific time I asked for. She gave me, if it's noon in Greenwich Mean, it's, here's what time it is
in the morning in California. Yeah. She didn't tell you what time it is now, but I think maybe the way you asked the question was different, but okay. Yeah. Well, this gives us some great background on ChatGPT and this AI. Let's get this to where our listeners can really understand why this is so next level.
Okay. So here's the thing about ChatGPT is like the third version of things that has come out from OpenAI. So they've generated other ones that didn't work as well as this one does. There was lots of criticisms about them. There was lots of issues with it giving like stupid results. I call it the Amelia Bedelia results. Like, so for those of you who don't know Amelia Bedelia's children's book, but it was like, I hated that book as a child. Absolutely hated it. I didn't understand why people would read that. Why would you be so literal about something? Like never understood that, right? And that kind of indignant attitude is how we get to these AIs. We think they're stupid because they take our questions so literally. They don't get us.
It's interesting the way your mind works and my mind works. It's very different because I thought those books were very funny as a child. They were read to me as a child because it deals with nuance, plays on words, really, and puns, if you will. And I always thought those things were very funny.
Right. But I was like, she should be smarter than that, right? She should get us, right? And
right.
This is how we approach our AI. We look at it and we think, if they don't get us, then it's not right. Then it's not going to work. It's never going to make it. It's never going to happen. And that's what happens. So there's like things like, it's like, what would happen if Christopher Columbus discovered America in 2014 or discovered, the Americas in 2014? Well, he didn't discover the Americas in 2014. Like it's irrelevant. So the AI has to be smart enough to know, say, hypothetically, if this happened. And that's what they don't do. Instead, they go through and they give you this historical exactly like what happened, but it doesn't make sense in 2014. Like this is how those previous AIs had been tested by others. So then what people would cite about it is the criticism of it is that it's not smart enough to know that you shouldn't answer these questions in that way. You should approach them from a different way. And you end up with sometimes very controversial results, very racist results, very sexist results, because they're taking something historical and stuffing it into current day as an answer.
Which isn't really very helpful, right?
No. And I think like there's a lot of criticism about ChatGPT and about OpenAI having too much guardrails, being filtering out sexist and racist results, being too leftist in its viewpoint on the world, too politically correct, if that's the way you want to say it. And here's the thing, I think. This is my view of it. It is just my perspective on it. I think that they had to do that. They have to do that because otherwise the conversation is about the racist results that it puts out and not about what it potentially can do. And what you do in the process of talking only about the controversy of it, because that's what people are going to go in and they're going to test things out. What do we do when we get the internet? We look for sex. Like, what is that song from Avenue Q, right?
Oh, the internet. It's like something about
it's for porn,
the internet
right?
is for porn, something like that.
Like exactly. Yeah. So like, that's what people go to try and do. So if we did that with this, then that's all we're ever going to talk about. And it hurts the future investment dollars. And ChatGPT is nothing if not a shot across the bow to the entire industry saying, we're where you should be investing your dollars. You should be joining our network. You should be joining OpenAI's nonprofit. You should be a part of the future. That's what this is about. It's about bringing in more dollars into it, because if more dollars happen, it's going to proliferate everywhere. And it's actually going to be a better AI at the end of the day. But if we leave it in this conversation about the controversy, we never get to its potential. Right. And so that's why I believe they did it. They didn't do it to be leftist about this. They didn't do it to be, to be politically correct. They did it because you have to remove this from the conversation, because for a decade now, that's the conversation around where AI has gone terribly wrong in the past. So let's remove it from the conversation. So that's what they did. So that's one of the criticisms that you're going to hear lobbed against it. So I think this was necessary in order to prove where they're going with it and its mission on what it can do. So you can see its really great business potential for yourself. So ChatGPT, the reason it's so brilliant is that it is based on this reinforcement learning.
What does that mean, Tracy? Can you give us an example?
It means that I need to, if I ask an AI to generate a transcript, or I generate a headline, let's do it with headlines, because I do this all the time. I use the AI to generate headlines for articles. So it generates a headline for me based on my copy, based on what I give it, based on it, and I don't like it. I just don't use it. That's what happens a lot of times. I just don't use it.
Like,
and so it has,
that isn't what I was hoping it would be. Right.
Right. Sometimes I might like refresh. So at least I'm telling it, you didn't give me the result the first time, but it doesn't know. And if I take the copy and paste that headline out and then go use it in my blog or go use it on my podcast title, they don't know I used it. They just know I stopped. So all the headline tools I've ever used have no feedback loop because it's not happening within the system. Okay.
So how is ChatGPT different? What did you do differently when you were testing it?
So ChatGPT built this in for it. So not only do I say I want to regenerate a new response, I type in a chat telling it what's wrong and regenerate it. So I say, the headline's not emotional enough. I would like it to have a better tone, or I would like it to be more excited. And I would tell it those things and then say, regenerate. So now it's learning what I didn't like about it naturally in conversation with me.
So you're actually communicating in ChatGPT with ChatGPT, providing it feedback, asking another level of depth of question, or asking it, refinement. Like I remember you told me at one point, you said, hey, I want it to have more energy. Or you also used it in a way where you said, I want this to read like it was said by a Hollywood announcer or something like that. You give it some
context.
Feedback.
Context. I gave it context of what I was looking for, and then it generated a new one, and it gets better every time. That's fascinating. So they've built into the process a way to encourage us to do the feedback loop, because humans are inherently lazy. So when we don't get the results we want, we just don't tell anyone. We just move on very often, unless it was so offensive, we complain about it. So when something's right, it doesn't learn that it's right. And it needs to learn the reward that this was correct, that I liked the results. So they also have an upvote and a downvote. So encouraging us to say, this was good and I'm moving on, right? And I'm taking this and I'm going on to the next thing. It wasn't, this was bad and I'm giving up, I downvote it. So it's giving you that thing that happens in Reddit. That's a Reddit thing. If you guys are users of that they upvote and downvote things. So, but by naturally encouraging the conversation, I'm telling it where I want it to go, why it wasn't good. I'm getting it to refine it, and really quickly. So that the next time, so this is what happened to me. So I tell it the headline's not energetic enough. It interprets what I meant by energy. I tried not to give it a specific direction. So then it gave me some energy. And then I said, okay, I want it to have positive energy. I added that word because I thought it sounded a little like it was energetic, but it was a little harsh. And so I wanted to have positive energy. It reworded it and it was perfect. So I clicked the upvote and I moved on. The next time I typed in and asked it to do a title, it automatically gave me positive energy because it learned what I wanted. And it starts from that place and continues on.
So you have a chat that is ongoing within.
Right. So we're going to talk
ChatGPT,
about
right?
how to use these things in a good way in a future episode, because it's a whole conversation about how I use this and what I do. But essentially, I'm doing all my headlines in one place because I know it's going to continually learn. It's something I learned because I recommend to all of you the Co-Schedule headline tool, which I really like. And it has these terminologies: emotion, more energetic. It talks about them in how it keywords them and how it uses it. And I bet you anything OpenAI knows about the Co-Schedule headline tool and is learning it. So one of the things that I just want you to be aware of is that the OpenAI platform and ChatGPT doesn't have anything after 2021. So
that's
if you
one of
want
these guardrails they put on it because they had to limit the data set. Is that right? That it's using?
I think it's not because of that. I think they don't want it to inadvertently have an influence on current politics or something currently in the news, the war. Like, it doesn't want to inadvertently do something that's so current in information it could have an influence on what's happening right now. So I think that I think it's a guardrail from that standpoint, that because they don't know what people are going to use. I mean, the whole point of putting this out is to see what people are going to use it for, like, so that they can develop an API that makes sense. The API that makes sense, right? That's what they're trying to figure out. It's their business model for it. So that's what they need for this. So that's one of the things that I discovered in this process of using it, is that it's brilliant and it's conversational, because the other AIs can't get you to tell you that you disliked it. You didn't use it. It doesn't learn enough when you don't have that training built in, and in this conversational way. Because I was kind of confused. Why do you want another chat? Like, I didn't understand that before I got in to use it. But I understand because of this reinforcement learning process that it's really actually for us, because we won't do what they need it to do, what our share of the feedback loop, we won't do it because we're too lazy. And by creating this conversation, it makes us do it in a way that was very comfortable and easy for us. So that's how it's going to get better and better and better. And it's why it's so impressive, because it also does interpret what I'm saying. It doesn't do this thing where it's not interpreting what I mean by energy. It makes an interpretation. It doesn't like give up. It might get it wrong. So then I tell it what type of energy I'm looking for, and I refine it. And now next time it does it right from that standpoint. So it's going to be really interesting to see how it keeps playing out the more I play with it, how much smarter it is. And this is what I found with almost all AIs that I played with before. They actually get worse over time.
Now let's explore that, because I think it's important. And this is sort of where I think there ends up being some good news for creative types like podcasters.
That's right.
That we want to end on that positive note when we get there. We're not there yet, but let's talk about why other AIs have that problem.
So a lot of AIs are based on pulling the most common pieces of information that are out there. So think about it as like Google's taking the more is more model. So if more people are saying this out in the world, then it must be right. They're not making the AI is not making a judgment call. The search isn't making a judgment call on that. Google eventually had to put in authority value, because just because people are saying it doesn't make it the right answer. So how do we weigh expert resources heavier than just the general public. So we get real health information, or we get real weather information from the Weather Bureau and not from the guy at this, with the binoculars next door. Like it just, where are we getting real weather? So like weighing your sources of information, right? Become it. The problem is when something's brand new, and this happened to us in our 3D printing world, things were moving so quickly in 3D printing that Google couldn't keep up with it. 1 out of every 5 searches in Google has no results that it could do because it's so brand new. 20% of search is something Google's never seen before.
Yeah, people are searching on so many different things all the time, every day. About 20% of what people type into Google's never seen that exact search query before.
That I think it's astounding that it's that high. But what it shows you is that things are changing so quickly and we're looking for answers, right? And we're looking for customized answers to us. So that's why it's not the same. What I type in isn't the same as what Tom types in, right? Like, so our queries are all also diversely different. And that's cool. That's a really cool, amazing thing about human beings. And so if our technology can't keep up with that, can't develop to that, where are they going to rely on their resources, right? So remember that ChatGPT and OpenAI is pre-trained. So it's got its sources for some things, but other things it has no source for it at all. Where is it going to find thought leadership, in this case, like on 3D printing that we were talking about, thought leadership on 3D printing? Google was looking for this. The OpenAI ChatGPT might be looking for something like that, of course, and probably another topic because 3D printing is a little old. And at the recording of this, is a little bit older. But what we found when we were doing our podcast was that our podcast was so much faster and more current than articles and anything else that was coming out in the market. And because we were blogging them, they were in a written searchable format for Google. And so when some new question was asked of it, Google would send us the traffic automatically, assuming we had the answer.
Or because we were the most relevant thing that existed, even if they couldn't find exactly what someone was searching for. I mean, Google really rarely provides you no results. They'll provide you the closest thing it knows of, right?
Right. And it will provide you the most credible resource for getting the answer if they don't see it readily apparent. So they are saying these people have a podcast. They publish every week. They're likely to cover this topic in the next week, and we don't know it yet. So let's give them the traffic. So that's where you get authority value. And you're getting authority on the idea that Google sees you as a thought leader that they're looking to for answers, and they're going to be expecting you to give that to people. So now you're in a thought leadership position. But very often, most websites are built to pull that information from other resources, right? The news feeds pull in information from other places, from other, and from their chosen sources, from those chosen places. So almost every article is written citing resources, right? Or citing a quote from somebody. So they're not coming up with the original thought in almost every other place. Videocasts, podcasts are uniquely suited for that thought leadership position. Because what happens when they're pulling information from the same old places, and everyone has those same, they're just using the same old places? What happens, Tom?
Oh, well, so this is what happened, right? With earlier versions of AI is without that feedback loop, whatever people are typing into it, it's basically thinking, like you said, more is better. Whatever there's more of is what we'll give back to people. And it wasn't capable, and AI is still not capable of original thought, right? It's only capable of providing you things that it knows of and that exist. And so
it might be original to you. Let me be very clear. It might be something that's outside your perspective, something you don't have the resources to see, but that doesn't make it's still groupthink at the end of the day.
Which is the opposite of thought leadership. To me, when we were talking about this, I was saying, really, it sounds like thought followership.
Right. Which is 90% of like TikTok and Instagram out there. They find a tip somewhere and then they reiterate it in their own way. And they might be doing it in a creative and fun way. And they've got their followers, but they aren't the thought leaders. They didn't originate those ideas. Thought leaders are very rare because they require a different mode of thinking. And it cannot happen in AI. Someone has to lead that thought. So now the thought leaders are going to become the future value for that AI to tap into, to find out what's new, what's happening, what the thoughts are on this process, and then start to group those thought leaders together and say, is this a good path? Is this make sense? Is this going to happen, right? So we're going to see a lot of that occurring. So your thought leadership and the fact that you're putting it out in podcast and video cast consistently and constantly is the way to play with AI in a really great way, and make sure that you are a part of that conversation in the future. That's the power of that original voice is going to have. The other side of that is, in an AI generated world where I don't know whether or not a bot generated this or a human did, while there are deep fakes of videos and deep fakes of voices, almost all good technology can detect that. We can see when it's a fake. We can see it's in the audio pattern. You can see when it was faked with. So there are ways for even AI to tell if something's a fake or not. And there are ways for Google to tell if something's a fake or not. But when you're showing up on camera and you're showing up with your voice, and it really is truly your voice and your face, that in and of itself is where more reward is going to happen than using AI generated stuff. So that means that there's going to be a downgrade in copy, in blogs, in other things that don't come from voice generation, from voice patterning.
We see there are a lot of AI tools being advertised, being talked about, that will generate a blog post for you in no time. You know, why write it the hard way when this tool can generate a better blog for you very quickly? And, you know, it certainly can. There are lots of them out there doing that. But again, they're only able to create these things from data that it knows already exists. So how original can that be? And there's a danger in, you know, all sorts of potential issues around, you know, copyright and other things, that, but also more importantly, in the eyes of the internet, just not being original, not being a leader. And so I agree with you, Tracy. I think this is actually very exciting and good news for podcasters.
Right. I think right now we've been seeing a lot of reports, and there's a lot of regurgitation off of the reports saying that there are a poor economic outlook. And Tom and I just did an episode a couple of weeks ago about our view of that. And we think they're wrong. We think that they're only looking at the podcasting market for what's less than 2% of the market, and that's the ad-based market. They're not looking at the ecosystem altogether. All of you, especially our followers, the ones who are using podcasting for business and thought leadership and those types of nurturing of community, and those things cannot happen by a machine. Those things happen from humans. And that in and of itself are why I think the economic outlook and in an AI driven world is completely underestimated for podcasting and video casting, and long form, not short form. Let me be really clear on that one. I really think that there is, we're being sorely underestimated there. And we're going to find that those of us, it's kind of like all along over the years, Tom and I, we've had websites with blogs for a long, long time, for over a decade. And every time there's what they call a Google slap, where Google changes its algorithm, our website got more traffic. And we kept getting that. And we were astounding some of the search engine optimized experts who were like, you're not doing any of these backlink purchases and you're not doing any of these things. How is it that you are like outdoing every single one of those algorithm shifts? Because every single time the algorithm shifts have been happening, everywhere they reward the original voice more and more and more. And that isn't going to change. I think it's only going to happen faster in this AI-driven world. When they find someone with an original thought, with an original voice, with original ideas, making those connections in our head that only humans are really great at. Taking all these pieces of information, synthesizing that, and coming up with an original view on the world, on what you should do in your business, on how you can help people. This is how you sell your books, your courses. This is how you do all of what you do. Our lovely business podcasters who I adore out there, in what you're bringing, your messages and your views on the world that you're bringing. Keep doing it. All these other things are tools. They might make the technical parts easier for you, but do not lose your original voice in this process. No matter what, that matters, that curation, that viewpoint, that perspective cannot be done by a machine. Will never be able to be done by a machine in the way that you can do it.
Now, at the same time, Tracy, just to sort of add a little bit to that, we're not negative or down on AI or ChatGPT at all. We're just saying, hey, podcasters, you guys have something special with your message you're bringing to the world that is going to be recognized and valued. But we're really bullish on this AI and opportunities to save time doing certain things and allow more creative energy to be put in others.
Right. That's my excitement about the AI market, for artificial intelligence to take away the mundane stuff that I don't want to do and be right about it, so I don't have to overthink it either. That's amazing. Like, I want that, because what it does is it gives me more time to reflect, to come up with better answers for you, to research things and think about where the future is going, to advise you in a better way. I have more time for all of you when I don't have to do those things. That's the beauty of that future world, right? That's what I'm excited about. And how can I harness AI to make every one of your lives better, with my view and perspective on how to truly harness innovation to make everything that you do shine. That's my job here, and what I will be concentrating on for the next year and a half on our use of AI within the company. And we're implementing it. We already use it in various ways. And how will we continue to use it more? Only if, and how we use it and how we train it and what we do with it is only going to make sure that your original voice shines through, that your uniqueness shines through in that process. Because the big danger of AI is that everything sounds the same. And that's what I've seen in every other AI I've used, is the more you use it, the more you realize they're giving you the exact same answer every single time, the exact same results. The headline's exactly the same with a couple of words shifted. It's the format for the descriptions exactly the same every single time, right? We can't have that. That destroys the originality that you bring to the world. And we don't want that here. We want your original voice to shine through on top of the tools.
All right. Wow, Tracy. All right. This has been a much longer episode than our typical, but I think it's a topic that really required that. And certainly hope all of our listeners have gotten some wonderful stuff out of it. I happen to think this episode probably is going to be one of the most replayed episodes, to go back and say, wait, what did she say about that? And what was the history part of ChatGPT? And so that's great. Please do that. We will take some deeper dives in niche aspects of this in the future as we have more to share. So, if you haven't subscribed already, please do, and stay tuned for future episodes on that. Definitely.
We'll be bringing you more. So
definitely. And you can find the blog post for this episode with some links to things that we've talked about. There's a lot of references here in this episode. They'll all be for you on the blog post at podetize.com. There's a Feed Your Brand page there. Check it out. All right. Thanks so much, everybody. We'll be back next time with another great episode. Until then, this has been Tom and Tracy
on Feed Your Brand.
All right. I was trying to throw to you. Hard to do when we're not in the
I
same
know, it's
room.
hard to do, but I saw your finger.
Okay.
Anne's asking over in the chat. Yeah, good throw. Okay, good. how, when, and what AI could and should be used to optimize the blend between AI and the original voice. And this is something we're going to be addressing in coming months. And I think it's premature because look, ChatGPT is not that usable. Like, it's really manual. There's no automation creation yet. They don't have their API in place. So like, there's just not some things like, so if you want to use something really efficient, my recommendation right now is Podmatch. I think Podmatch does an amazing job of doing guest and show matches at a really great level. So if you're looking at guesting on shows or bringing guests onto your show, I have upped my game and gotten some of the most excellent business results by using the premium version, which is about $50 something, $54 a month or something like that, 52 version of Podmatch.
And
it's the best one I've encountered.
That
and
is
I've
using
used like
AI for what it does, to be clear, correct?
Yep. And it really does learn you, gets better at its results, does matching. It's got a big feedback loop. It's constantly monitoring you and asking you, how was that? You did an interview. Was it any good? Like, it's asking you for reviews. So it forces the feedback loop in it, which is why it's refining and doing a great job. I'm really impressed with that one. But, you know, it's a question. Like, I'm subscribed to so many different, like it was one on the list that I was like, I'm not getting rid of that. And so, you know, that's how valuable the results were. Like, some of that $50 a month I'm spending, and I might have gotten a $50,000 partner from it. Keep that in mind, that that's the kind of results that I'm seeing from it. If you're using it right. Take the time to set up your profile and use them properly. This is the other problem with AI. Most people don't take the time to reset it. So, and when you joined back in the company, we were testing out an AI for social media posting that absolutely failed, and it was extremely expensive. And Gary Vee was touting it as the next best thing, and he was using it, saying he got all this great conversion. And what we found is it took us over a year to train it. And then it was giving us the same old stuff every single time. It was like cookie cutter. I'm like, we could have done that a year earlier. And, you know, and I could have had someone who didn't know my show, didn't know anything about me, and they could have picked that clips. And it was just doing a terrible job. And so we canned it. We shut it down. Went back to Meet Edgar. I recommend Buffer as well to people, but from a posting standpoint, those are bots. They're not AI. They give you
just
insights
automation
that you have to take it. They're automation tools, right? There's some great automation tools. Use the automation tools and try the ones that use AI, but use them skeptically. Use them with an eye to, like, was that getting better? Was it getting worse? What was happening with it? Am I getting great results or not? So that's my recommendation for right now. But every time we test things out, every time we're moving forward, if I find something that's working or find a way to use something that's working, I will let you know. And that's what we're going to cover in the future. So anyone else have any questions before we close down? And I mean, I know we like ran up right against the end, but we can stay.
A long episode. Yeah.
Yep. But I'm glad we covered it. So
it is really exciting, and it's fun to
technical questions,
experiment
Scott.
with it. Oh, good. Please.
And let him come on if you want.
We can let him come on. Yeah. Hold on. What am I doing here? Scott, allow to talk if you want. There you go. Well, did I do it?
Yep.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Loud and clear.
First of all, congratulations. Happy anniversary.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy 100th episode. That's always great. So, hang on. I got my little applause meter here. I think I can do the applause sound thing here if I can find it here real fast. But I do have a question. I've had my VA. I haven't been very good about uploading or sending over my guest speaking appearances on other people's podcasts for the Best of Scott Carson podcast.
Right.
If I've got like 35 that my VA has pulled, and would it be best to send it over in a spreadsheet with the name, the title, the URL link, and the artwork to it?
Yeah. If you can include, if you have it, the MP3 file link URL for that episode from their hosting platform, that's even better. If you can't, you know, we can find it, but at least a list of those episodes so that, you know, we can pull the info and add it. Definitely.
So what Scott's asking about is the Showcaster. When you're filling in your Showcaster with it, you can send us a bulk request. Like that's no problem if you want to just send us a spreadsheet. We have publicists who do that and people who start out that do that. If you're doing them one-on-one, like I occasionally, I'm like, I just got the email from people and I just drop it into the, like, send it on. And like, that's easier to do when you're maintaining. But if you haven't been good about forwarding it, we got to update it. Do a bulk request. Yeah, no problem.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And I just booked 20 other podcasting spots in the last 3 days as well.
Yeah, you did.
So pretty stoked about it.
Scott, I'm really curious because we're going to be doing an upcoming topic. I was just raising this flag is that the risk of you doing more topic-based episodes, which I love that that's a choice that you're making for the future. You mentioned that to me in a text message or in a phone call. We had a phone call. And is the risk that you don't have podcast swapping going on as it. So I'm very curious to see how your guesting has come about for you. And if it's really, what kind of tactics you've used. I'd love for you to report back to me and let me know.
Yeah. I mean, I'm reaching out via LinkedIn, doing a pretty easy search. And if they, I'm always glad to do a podcast swap if they want to do that. It's totally fine doing that. I mean, but I get some people like, it just doesn't make sense for you to be on my show. And if you don't want to have me on because you want to, that's totally fine. I respect it. But we've just really done a 90-day sole focused on just really topic based. And we've seen the downloads go from 2,700 when I was basically pod fading to over 15,000 a month. And so really seeing a big increase.
A big increase.
Yeah. Across all three of all three of the podcasts. So yeah, I'll be glad to share in any way I can for you guys.
Sounds great. Thank you, Scott. We appreciate you. And thank you for helping us get to 200 episodes by suggesting things here because you have. So we appreciate that.
Anytime, guys. Y'all take care. I'm coming up on I just recorded episode 735 today on the Nugget.
Wow. Yeah. Amazing.
Congratulations on that. That's really good.
Thanks, guys. Y'all gotta get some tequila in it. All right. Not too much, but some tequila.
Yeah, Thank definitely. You. Celebration. Yeah. Adult celebration, not cake, kids celebration. So, okay. Well, if there are no other questions, I'm not seeing any. Our next week's topic is prepping your show to be attractive to sponsors. And I know some of you are very interested in that. So we're going to talk about what makes a show attractive. And some of these things you can do from the very beginning. Or some of them you do from the beginning, and that's why you're not attractive to sponsors. So some things you might want to be thinking about it from the flip side, things you might need to purge and clean up on your show if you decide that now's the time for me to take a sponsor. So we'll be setting that up for next week. Okay, thanks everyone. We appreciate you.
See you next week, everyone.
Thank you.